Lemon Amiga presents a Playguide video review. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Welcome to another Lemon Amiga game guide and review. In this week's show, we're checking out Banshee AGA, developed by Core Design and released in the summer of 1994. This is a shoot 'em up, and in this game we have to defend Earth from a marauding alien, and our name is Sven. And that's the remains of our father, who's been tortured and murdered because he refused to invent the microwave oven. Thanks to this nonsensical steampunk introduction, we gather that we are flying a plane in an alternative reality, facing the Styx invaders, which are aliens from another world. From the title screen we can view those high scores, and if we leave the title to roll it will actually view those high scores for us, and we can check those out. Of course, this is the WHD load that I'm using at the moment, and so it's got Cold Tapper's name on the high score table. Along with the rendered ray trace backgrounds, I find the music is particularly memorable. Also play this game in 2-player mode and check that out in the rolling introduction. And yes, 2 players are better than 1 when we are fighting in this game, because hopefully they will be able to take out the enemies all the quicker, and they get double the handouts as well. Banshee can be mayhem, and it can also be lots of fun, especially in 2-player mode. Unfortunately, we won't be playing 2-player mode in this particular review, so we'll be checking out the 1-player mode, which is particularly hard, even on the easy mode. So let's admire another Banshee symbol in the background, made on the Amiga of course, and I think that this introduction is certainly fitting to this game and adds quite a lot of atmosphere. But enough of this introduction, let's return back to that menu. From here we can change the native language between one of 4 built into this game, and let's swap to the traditional one fire button Amiga joystick, and let's leave all the options on normal, and apart from of course the difficulty level, because I find this game very difficult, I like to switch to at least easy mode to make that job much easier. And yes, this is the first time I've played it in many years, since back in the day. This is without warm-ups and without practice. So let's just dive on in and let's just check this game out. Banshee contains 4 huge levels, and at the beginning of each one of those we will gain a little bit of the story. Basically, we are flying over Nova Scotia and towards a harbour town, but just like the 1942-1943 games, we begin out there at sea and we have to fly in towards the land and to take on those enemies once at a time and hopefully pick up a few power-ups to make that job much easier. Power-ups can be found inside some large enemies, and for clearing waves sometimes you will gain something, and inside tall buildings, so you will have to blow everything away in order to find the best power-ups, and in this case it's the bombers which we really need to blow up, and those give us an increase in speed, and we will cover the power-ups a little bit later on, but for the moment it's best to find those bullets, and they increase our firepower. At this stage, it's the firepower which matters rather than the speed. Sound effects of war soon build up, and we can hear when missiles launch, and a pretty weedy sound when things explode, and I think that could have been much better. But apart from that, we can pick up those pickups, and you can see the red one that we picked up was an increase in firepower speed, but we already had the maximum, unfortunately, of the 3 that we can pick up, and so it's best to shoot those power-ups and try to pick up something else. Unfortunately, if you happen to die, then that will remove the last power-up and the last generation of power-ups. And so let's just pick up the 3rd generation of speed again for those bullets and make sure that we can attack those enemies at least, rather than it being a pure bullet dodge fest. Each level contains a number of bosses, and you won't find just the one at the end, you will find quite a few, and inside those you will find a health pickup usually, and that really helps because the health in this case is going down pretty rapidly, but at least we get health in this game. This game didn't already borrow heavily from 1942, we can do the same barrel roll just by pressing the spacebar, but I've never found anyone who had the courage to lean forward and press that spacebar when all they needed to do was pull left or right to avoid the bulk of this firepower. either side we have an instrument panel, and from here we can see the lives and the loops are actually clearly marked, and the bullet speed, which is one of 3 upgrades, and the shield as well, and when the boss appears we'll also see the boss strength as well. In this case we find another boss, or a set of bosses, and these are the submarines, and just like the spy who loved me, we'll have to blow these up, of course, in a plane, and that means that we have to glide our way quite slowly along these very smooth levels. And you may notice it's raining at the moment. Some of those atmospheric effects will blend into the background, and it will stop raining hopefully once we dispatch these bosses. In order to defeat almost all of these bosses, all you have to do is to stay out of harm's way, and having done so, it's easy to swoop in and take on a few pot shots. But looking at that health, well, there's another one up. It would be better actually to get the health and to keep that topped up at all times. Health is difficult with wraparound power-ups, but sometimes we can find an extra life even straight away, and that means that we don't lose lives as much as we think we would do. And here we go, this is another power-up situation, a hall of lighthouses, if we can only collect those and power ourselves up. Hadn't noticed, we have some fog on the screen, and these transparencies aren't very common on the Amiga, and it just shows how well programmed this game is, and it's a constant onslaught of enemies, and even the guys piling out of the back of trucks scream madly, and that's a memorable sound effect, as is the clang of hitting certain objects. So even though the explosions is pretty weak, the rest of the sound effects in this game are very well done. Just like Swiv, it really helps to memorise these levels, and certain power-ups appearing at certain points can be collected if you know where they are, and we're about to shoot. Upgrades that we can collect are pretty basic. We can collect the normal plane rotor, which will make us go faster. We can also collect bullet speed and also bullet power, and that is bullet spread, so that we can spread those bullets out. And just like Hybris, of course, the more you collect and the easier it gets. screen is maybe 2 screens wide, we can actually choose our way through the action, and sometimes we could even avoid things altogether by strafing one side of the screen or the other. You certainly do not have to blow everything away, and the objective is to survive all the way to the end of the game so that we can blow up the evil boss right at the end. If you fail to do that by getting yourself killed, then that's game over. Viewers find some of these sound effects familiar. That's because they were reused from Core's Warzone game, which we'll be reviewing next week. And yes, Core's Warzone is definitely another favourite of mine. Warzone appeared in 1991 for the Amiga, and no, not many of the guys from Warzone worked on this game, but plenty of the guys from Chuck Rock helped to create this fabulous game. The difficulty curve in Banshee is brilliant because it gives the player a hard time followed by some power-ups followed by a very easy time, and this is the very easy time on this level, but it's very easy to be complacent, and this, well, is virtually the end of the first level of the 4 levels in this game, and if you fall into the pit of death and die, unfortunately you'll lose the power-ups just when you need those most. Because we are rapidly heading towards the boss, and the boss will take all our firepower. The firepower that we have at the moment is pretty good, but it won't make that thing a pushover because the boss is very hard. And there is a trap somewhere near here, and if you fall into that trap, you'll lose a life and of course lose the firepower. With no more enemies on the screen, it's boss time, and all you have to do is zoom straight up to the top, hopefully, and you can hit that thing on the diagonal. But if you fail to do that, and you don't get out of its way quickly enough, of course you will lose the power-ups that you've managed to collect, and that means with level 1 firepower, which we have at the moment, destroying that boss is nigh on impossible, unless you have the very perfect solution. And yes, it is possible somehow to do it. By luring that ball across at just the right time, you can avoid it. Very lucky that that thing blew up just as it was swiping towards demolishing a new life, but luckily we have the lives as we move on to the second level, and this really is another world because we go on to a town level, and here we'll find everything from a graveyard to mobile gangsters, and of course the army will be in reinforced barracks trying to blow us away, and you'll find armoured vehicles and that kind of thing. The game always gives the player the same amount of firepower on the beginning of the level, no matter how much they have reached, so it will give them pretty low grade firepower. And our job is to build that up so that we can be a competent pilot on this level. And no, we cannot kill the women with babies in pushchairs, but that's just the kind of humour that makes this great. And I like the fact that you can avoid all these things if you know where to stand on the battlefield, and there is no dead-end situations where the player will find themselves outmanoeuvred and outgunned, because all they have to do is to keep on the move and hopefully avoid all of this firepower. But that's the easy part of the game. The hard part, you still have to fly it, and you can see it's turned into bad weather all of a sudden, which means we are entering, well, perhaps the cemetery. And let's avoid the zombies piling out of the graveyard, hopefully, and the militia on the roof. I found the sound effects in Swiv were more of an orchestral manoeuvre in the dark rather than this, which sometimes blends with all these kinds of effects, which when high action is going on it's great, but it could have been a little bit better, and of course there is no in-game music as you can hear. Lose a life, then we'll have to use one of our 3 credits, and you can see I've used a credit which will reset the score, which means that will take a dive on the high score table. So trying to get through this game in 1 life is difficult, even though the graphics are great and I love those extra touches, particularly on this level. And we can see that we've got our firepower all the way up there. And those enemy bullets aren't really the problem, and sometimes it's best to wade into those and hope for a health pack than to collide with some of the big armour floating around these levels. Once again, we find ourselves utterly destroyed before we reach that mid-level boss, and that means he can use his boxing gloves and knock us out pretty much straight away. The credits are now falling thick and fast, but thankfully we do have those credits. And getting back to that level, hopefully he can survive. And yes, let's just press that loop-the-loop, which gives us a moment of invincibility, which is great. It means that we can take on that thing completely unharmed, but as I say, reaching for that spacebar is very difficult in the heat of battle. After that, we get to carry on with the level, so whilst you're watching yet another succession of bosses, which should reveal some more power-ups, I will talk about this game a little bit more. And yes, this was a core design game, and like many core design games, it has all the polish, and you may remember Jaguar XJ220, of course, and core design were famous for their polish and design because they went on to Tomb Raider and the Tomb Raider franchise. And the coder of this game was a certain Soren Hannibal. Banshee was his first game in the world, and he then went on to the 2 games based on The Matrix, and Project Spark appeared in 2004. great graphics, and the co-design was Jacob Anderson, and Jacob Anderson began with CoverGirl Strip Poker in 1991 on the Amiga, and Jacob Anderson is also famous for creating the Hitman series, co-designing the original, and he also created the graphics on the sequels, Hitman 2 and Hitman Contracts, and the fourth Hitman game, so he is really a Hitman famous guy, even though, as I say, began with strip poker. Aircraft is about to blow up, you will see that smoking all over the screen, and that's a great effect. And I think there are lots of great effects in this game, and I appreciate the fact that we can see the bullets. Even though those hails of bullets aren't easy to avoid, we can always press the space bar, and if we do so, we can roll, and we are given a new set of rolls every time we die, so hopefully that's 3 shields at your disposal. Banshee is an Amiga exclusive and was released on the Amiga 1200 and the CD32. And you can see the AGA graphics have been used to great effect, and I really love all these mini bosses, which are very fun to destroy, as is most things in this game, and of course it's very difficult. Though this is a steampunk game, there isn't really many futuristic effects going on, and I think that there is nothing here which is like Hybris with the mega weapons that we had on offer, and even Frenetic had mega weapons on offer, and well, it's certainly a step up from the very simple firepower that we found in Swiv, but all the same it carries on that very simple mechanic of blowing things up one at a time. May be forgiven for thinking that we are rapidly approaching the end of this second level, but unfortunately we have still some way to go, and we won't be making it to the end, unfortunately, in this playthrough. Taking a quick look at those scores. Playtime awarded Banshee 81%, Amiga Joker gave this 83%, Amiga Computing gave it 88%, Amiga Power gave it 89%, Amiga Format gave it 90%, and so the top score in this case goes to CU Amiga, who gave this 91%, which gives Banshee AGA an average score of 8.5 out of 10. And that game over, and because of our weedy high score having continued, we do not even make it to that high score table, and here is the end of second level boss. Yes, this is World of Long play footage submitted by I Am Ironclaw, and Ironclaw is a great player. As you can see, he has the maximum firepower and he manages to keep the health up all of the time. You can see on level 3 it begins with a winter wonderland and a few Eskimos, and then descends into something which came out of Star Wars with a great fog effect and a great desert. So snow and desert being similarly in parallel to each other on the same level. Like most shooters, I feel it's a shame that many players will never ever get to see these later levels and all these great graphics and effects, simply because the game is too hard, and many shooters suffer from that mechanic. So this is right at the very end of the game, where we cannot fire before destroying the final level boss, and it's very exciting. So thank you once again for viewing another Lemon Amiga game guide and review. Thank you.